Episode 12 of BLT Bets, back from our little mini hiatus, but we are back to talk some sports betting. Your M-Chuck, BaggedMilk, Liam, hello.
We almost forgot to record a podcast this week also.
We almost did. Yesterday, you were like, we should do a betting pod. And I'm like, well, what day is it today? Wednesday? And you were like, well, it's Thursday. Like, oh, shit. Yeah, we need to do that ASAP. It's
silly
tough
season
right now.
Silly season, just the days kind of blend together, don't they?
Yeah, they really do. But I'm excited for things to slow down. The sports calendar also slows down. Like, I think we have next Wednesday is that like weird day in the calendar where there's just no sports, right? Because you have, for baseball wise, and we can actually talk about this a little bit, but Home Run Derby is coming up on Monday. And then on Tuesday is the All-Star game. The Home Run Derby, infinitely more fun to bet on than the All-Star game. The All-Star game is more or less pointless.
Hang on. Now you've piqued my interest here. Betting on the Home Run Derby. This
Unreal.
is new to me. Tell me about it.
Okay, if you want to have a good goddamn time, you sit down with a case of beer and some friends and you wager on the MLB Home Run Derby. So the way they do it now is they have like, it's a bracket system, right? Where it's tournament style, two guys go head to head. And whoever hits the most home runs advances to the next round, goes head to head with someone else. And then there's a third round. That's the final, right? So that totally has opened up the betting market from what it was before, where it was just guys in round one hitting a bunch of dingers and then top four, move on, whatever. So now you have the ability to go like, I don't even know who's really in it this year. I haven't looked into it too hardcore. But like Pete Alonso versus Corey Seager or something like that, right? You bet on them head to head in round one. That makes it interesting because also the rounds are like 3 minutes long, right? So it's like a bit of like that instant payout kind of feeling. And also you can do stuff like how many home runs will be hit in the first round combined between all the players. There's a lot of ways to get into it. It's a lot of fun.
The head-to-head seems fun, especially as the rounds go on.
Yeah. And then also like if you just pick a horse right off the jump and kind of like run with them, it can be fun. Like the 1 year Vladdy lost to Pete Alonso in the final, I'd bet on Vladdy. And like it was sweaty coming down the end when like every pitch you're like, come on, get out. Yeah.
He's not in again. He's not in it this year, right?
No, Vladdy has said he will not be doing it. But the bracket this year, it's actually really interesting because MLB, and I actually kind of wish more sports would do this. In their latest CBA, they passed like an interesting thing saying the commissioner can add legends into the All-Star game, even if they're not All-Stars, right? So like this year, even though Albert Pujols isn't an All-Star, he's going to be in the Home Run Derby. And I think that's kind of cool how he's he's going up first round against Kyle Schwarber. And it's like, man, like one of the legends of the game is going to get a chance to like be in this event. The other guys are Juan Soto versus Jose Ramirez, Seager versus J-Rod from Seattle, that hot prospect they have. And then Pete Alonso versus Ronald Acuna. And Pete Alonso is a machine. Like I would imagine when the betting odds come out, Pete Alonso is going to be the favorite to win this thing.
I was hoping Shohei would be in there.
I know. Wouldn't that have been cool? Like, I kind of wish there was more similar to the dunk contest in basketball, I guess, although that's kind of boring now. But I wish there was a little bit more of a buy-in from like the superstars in this. Guys are always afraid to like mess up their swings and shit like that. But like, if you could have had Vladdy and Shohei in this, the hype would have been immense.
Absolutely. I like this. I like going head to head on a little betting because I do enjoy watching the Home Run Derby, but I don't care all that much.
You're about to.
Adding a couple of shekels in there, that'll make a world of difference, I think.
Yeah.
Speaking of, just since you brought up the Jays, one thing that I'm seeing here in one of the books that I'm looking at is full-time manager for next season, the 2023 season. You can put some bets down if you're so inclined, Tyler. Got John Schneider at plus 200. Bruce Bochy.
Yeah. He managed the Giants to a couple World Series championships.
Ron Washington, Brad Osmus, Joe Madden, Joe Girardi, Walt Weiss. Any of those interest you, Tyler?
Walter White?
Did you skip over? Yep. Did you skip over Mike Scioscia because you didn't want to say his name, or was he not on your list? I see him at plus 600 on my list here.
Oh, I didn't have him on my list.
I think John Schneider's a decent spot there at plus 190. Like while we're digging into the Jays talk, Coombsy and I talked about this on BGN Radio. Like. And for Oilers fans listening, this is more or less the in a slightly different way, but like the firing Tippett to bring in Woodcroft, right? Like John Schneider has been in the Jays organization for over 20 years. He was a catcher with one of their minor league teams. He worked his way up to like bench coach in the minors, manager in the minors. And when Bo, Vladdy, and all those guys, Biggio, that little core of them, when they won a championship with the Jays AA team, John Schneider was their manager. Like they kind of all got their start in pro baseball under John Schneider. So it wasn't surprising to see him named the manager. I still believe the Jays are going to go on a heater here in the second half of the season, despite that tough loss to the Royals last night.
That was a tough one.
That was a very tough one.
My betting on the Jays, Tyler, has not gone well recently. The team is not playing very well, and it is doing all kinds of harm to my betting account.
The nice thing is they beat the Phillies in those back-to-back games, and that saved my bankroll a little bit because I won on a couple of bet builders there, but it's painful right now. Anyways, just to finish my thought, John Schneider at plus 190. I think that's a good bet. I think there's a very good chance they just name him, kind of like the Oilers did with Woodcroft. He's their full-time manager next season.
To make that happen, though, if we want this bet to go through, what has to happen for the Jays the rest of the year? Because I want to win some money here, Tyler.
Yeah, I would say that the Jays probably have to like get out of the wild card round this year in the majors. And to do that, like the funny thing is, you know, everyone's acting like the Jays are just absolutely in shambles right now, right? And it's like, well, you know, they are tied for a playoff spot. Yeah, they're tied for the third wild card spot with the Boston Red Sox. Somehow the Baltimore Orioles are only a game and a half back of them. They've won 10 in a row, which is just insanity. But it's not like the Jays are a bottom feeder and they need to play like 650 baseball down the stretch to get into the playoffs. Like they've been a fine team this year. They just haven't been elite like everyone thought. I still think they have that elite potential. So I don't know. I'm not going to jump off the betting on the Jays train here because I do think a heater's coming and we're going to start making some money off them.
What were the odds for John Gibson to be the new manager of the Toronto Blue Jays?
John Gibbons?
Question.
Gibbons? Sorry, massive fan.
Or John
my
Gibson
second favorite.
also.
It's like Alex Manoah. I finally said his name right. Damn it.
Yes, you did. He's not even listed on there. I think in part because...
Damn it. What about Cito?
He was at the game the other day, and that had people being like, ooh, what's going to happen with Cito?
Was he really? Could you imagine another tour of duty? Bring him back.
That'd be his third time through, but like third time being the Jays manager in a third decade as well.
That's pretty impressive.
Will Pete Walker survive another managerial firing? I feel like that guy's just been here forever.
I actually thought Pete Walker could have been named manager. I thought that was one of the, like if they didn't go with Schneider, I thought Pete Walker, like he'd been around a little bit longer, but I think they value what Pete does with the pitchers too much to like take his focus away from that. So if anything, I bet you if another team were to come to the Jays and be like, hey, we want to interview Pete Walker for a manager job, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jays just threw like gobs of money at him and we're like, no, you're going to stick around here. Because I mean, he has that reputation as being like a magic pitching coach. Yeah. Anyways, speaking of the Jays, we can talk about that because we have some hockey talk we want to get to. But I am still fully backing the Blue Jays. They're minus 312 tonight against the Kansas City Royals. And obviously, like,
I can win it back.
I just think they're too damn good to like lose to this team twice in a row. So you're obviously not going to get any value in just straight up betting on the Jays to win tonight at minus 312. But I think there is some interesting spots with Alek Manoah on the bump to bet on this Jays team to win. Like if you were to do a same game parlay of the Blue Jays minus a run and a half and Manoah just to get 6 plus strikeouts, that's paying out plus 120. Like that is a pretty solid payout for what should happen in this baseball game, which is the Jays winning big and Manoah running over the Royals, who are like a AAA ball club right now.
Because isn't half their roster just not in Canada?
Yeah, they have 10 players. They have 10 players unvaccinated.
Okay, because one of those players was Andrew Benintendi, right? Who the Blue Jays were linked with.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's no way that he comes to the Blue Jays.
I think it was John Heyman, though. So there's a couple of reports out there that you can kind of connect together. John Heyman, I think, was the guy who said Benintendi, big free agent target, but his vaccination status is a problem. But the Jays checked in a couple days ago, and there is a belief that Toronto may be able to convince him to get it if they were to acquire him. And then there was a report out of Kansas City that some players in the Royals locker room have said, we would have gotten vaccinated if we were a better team. Like they just kind of looked at this. They looked at this opportunity to just be like, oh, I'm just not going to go to Toronto and get 4 days off. Like, sick.
Wow.
So maybe Benintendi's one of those guys who's like, yeah, I'll get the shot if I can like play playoff baseball this year and like the Royals will trade me. But apparently the dream is not dead if you want Benintendi on the Jays.
That is a winning mentality. We're going to suck all year, so I'm going to get 4 days off when they go to Toronto.
Yeah, I'm going to give up a little bit of money, but I'm going to get a chill at home while the rest of the team goes up to Toronto. Perfect. How often does KC play in Toronto?
I think this is their only trip of the year.
Oh, just a casual little 4-day holiday? Come on.
Lined up with the All-Star game. These guys are like probably out at the beach now enjoying like a solid week off.
Absolutely. I know you guys are golf, or at least you are, Tyler. Are you betting on the Open?
I had a little bit of money on Justin Thomas to win. That's not exactly going all too well for me. I didn't go as heavy on the Open. I don't know. Usually I do like hours and hours of research before I do this kind of stuff, especially with golf betting, because I feel like I just need to really dial it in if I'm going to lay like a few $100s like on guys to win a tournament. So I just didn't have the time to do the research. So I'm not as invested. I've been doing a little bit of like 3-ball stuff, but honestly, not going too well. And the tough part about the Open is that like it starts so early, right? It's really hard to get into when the rounds are like almost over by the time we wake up,
Yeah, 100%.
And the weather is ridiculous. It's so hard to predict what's going to happen because the wind is just all over the place. It's a tough one to bet on.
Yeah. I know Corey Connors, he's 1 under, so he's got to, throw together somewhat of a decent round to make the cut. But yeah, I'm not really as into this one as I am with the ones that happen sort of on this side of the pond, just because, again, the timing with all that. Like I love when it's, Augusta or the US Open or whatever, and you can wake up and get like the full day of golf in. Like that's what I love, not like waking up and being like, oh shit, what did I miss while I was sleeping,
Yeah, that's fair. Because what time would it start here? Like 3-4 in the morning kind of thing?
Yeah. So I'm not super into it. Let's chat a little bit about the NHL. Free agency went down, or is still going down, I suppose. But something that caught our attention is the fact that you could find books offering odds on where guys are going to sign, which is fascinating.
I'm sad that I missed out on it a little bit because I didn't know until after the fact that was a thing that you could do. And man, that seems like fun. It just seems fun, especially when you got, info and rumors kind of leaking out over the last couple of weeks leading up to free agency. It just seems like, for me anyway, it's just another way to enjoy the day, which is already pretty intense. But if you can win a couple of dollars here and there, I mean, how much money could a person have won if they had put money on Gaudreau going to Columbus?
Wow, well, no kidding.
Yeah.
I wonder if it would even would have been. I wonder if that would have even been an option. Because there was like no speculation of him going to Columbus at all. What was it? New Jersey, Philly, the Islanders, and Calgary, I guess. Would have been probably the 4, not Columbus, unless you just did mystery team like people were saying. Somehow it's Columbus.
I love that when there was all the, there could be a mystery team in on Columbus. And it's like, well, yeah, okay. So like you listed the 4 teams that could be interested, then what, the other 28 teams fall under the category of mystery team? Like I just thought that was funny.
Could be anybody.
I'm going to keep an eye out for that next year because that just seems like a good time.
Well, so I saw a few books posting that like they had odds up, and there was the one day I saw a tweet. It was like 1:00 in the afternoon Mountain Time. It was a tweet from earlier in the morning, and it was like, hey, we have odds up on free agency. And I think it was Dustin Nielsen was like, Jack Campbell to Edmonton and Darcy Kuemper to Washington both opened at plus 100. And I was like, holy shit, I got to get in on that. So I fire up the book to go bet on it. And again, this is like 3 hours after the odds have been posted, and they had fallen to like minus 333. Like it took the books like an hour and a half,
2 seconds. Yeah.
To be like, oh boy, we fucked up. Cause like Kemper and Campbell, you didn't have to be an insider. Like all you had to do was listen to like one hockey podcast or like read Twitter for an hour one day. And it's like, oh yeah, those guys are definitely going to those spots. So I wonder if next year, if you can be sharp enough, like jumping on the lines, if you're one of those people who just like listens to sports talk radio or is like plugged into like what the insiders say on Twitter and shit, like there's probably some money to be made there next year.
Now that we're through kind of the first couple of days of free agency, do you think that's affected anyone's chances of moving forward or becoming a cup champ? Because I'm looking at the season bets for 2022-23. Book I'm looking at, Colorado plus 500 to be league champs. Very disrespectful, in my opinion. Arizona Coyotes at plus 50,000. But do you think that any of the free agent signings are kind of affecting your thought process if you're going to put a future bet down for next year?
So just to rattle off the top 10 for everyone listening, you mentioned Colorado, and then it's Carolina plus 900. This is courtesy of our friends over at PointsBet. PointsBet is live in Ontario. Carolina's 9-1, Tampa Bay 10-1, Toronto 10-1. Florida comes in at 5th at 12-1. The Rangers, Oilers, and Golden Knights are all 15-1. Penguins, Wild, Flames are all 20-1. So that's kind of the top 10 you're looking at here. Interesting that the Oilers have jumped up a little bit. The Golden Knights have fallen back. The Leafs basically stayed the same, but the Canes jumped ahead of both them and Tampa Bay. So Liam, is there a team in free agency you look at and go like, hey, they increased their odds here?
I think out of the top teams that were good last year, like you just kind of got to say the Oilers, right?
As homer of us as it is to say that, yeah,
it is. But like a lot of the other teams just didn't really improve because they were already so good, or like they didn't have the cap space to do it. Like Minnesota lost Kevin Fiala, Carolina lost D'Angelo, but got Brent Burns. I don't know how much that will really change.
They got Pacioretty too, though.
Yeah, that's right, Pacioretty. So maybe Carolina's the other pick.
But then they went out and they lost Trocheck and Niederreiter.
Yeah, like I said, it's kind of a weird one, isn't it? Like I think it's Edmonton. I think Edmonton should walk the division. Is that too homery to say as well? Like I just don't rate Vegas that much. They're just going to keep trading players for cap space. Apparently, Calgary got worse.
2 summers and 2 off seasons in a row where they've traded a key player for absolutely nothing.
Yeah, remarkable. And then they tried to do it for Dadonov and couldn't get away with it. Like, I don't know why anyone would want to play in Vegas. And I guess maybe that's why nobody signed in Vegas this summer.
For me, the Vegas Golden Knights are that guy that you see the story of on the news who wins the lottery and within 5 years is broke. Like they had a chance to build themselves up like a perfect salary cap situation, right? They were the only team 5 years ago with no bad contracts because they had no contracts at all. And they just couldn't help themselves. Like they just continually wanted to go after the big fish. And while it was happening in real time, we were all sitting there being like, they're a lesson to every team in the NHL. Go for it all the time. And now you look back and you go, no, there's a reason why you don't just go sign every big name free agent and make every big trade available, because eventually it's going to bite you in the ass.
Well, and some of the trades they're making, like Liam you could just mention the Pacioretty deal. Like I think to when they acquired Pacioretty from Montreal in the first place, I was talking to a Habs fan friend of mine, and it was Suzuki, Thomas Tatar, and a second to get him from Montreal. To acquire Tatar in the first place, it was like a first round pick and a second round pick or something like that. And then to just to give that away for nothing. Like that is horrible asset management. So I can see Vegas being better than they were last year, but not by much. I don't see them being division contenders.
It's Edmonton, Vancouver will be a little bit better because they beefed up their forward group and like Thatcher Demko, Bruce Boudreau, like that'll help. But you never know what's going to happen with JT Miller there too. Yeah, that's a good point. My prediction for next year in the Pacific would be like a pretty easy one to make. Actually, I think it's going to go Edmonton, Vancouver, Vegas.
That's what
You think Calgary's just going to follow it entirely?
Yeah, we should probably remember the LA Kings though. But
I have LA as the wild card team. I think in the Western Conference, the only I don't think the Central will change. Like Dallas will probably fall out, I think. But then Pacific, I have Vegas and Vancouver both getting into the playoffs and Calgary falling out. If the Tkachuk thing, kind of assuming he's going to stay, I suppose, at this point. But even with him, are they better? But they lost Branson too. He was decent last season for them. He's not $4 million 4 years, decent, but
yeah. The interesting part there is Johnny Gaudreau had the most even strength points in the NHL, and Calgary, it just seems like they might not be able to replace him. I know everyone's being oh, they'll go sign Kadri. But remember 2 summers ago, Kadri was about to be traded there, and he used his no trade clause to nix it. I don't think there's any reason to suggest he wants to be in Calgary unless they're just going to offer him gobs of money.
But I mean, we're day 3 of free agency now. Yeah. Kadri's still out there. Maybe he kind of looks around of who's got the most money to spend, and this is a big deal for him in terms of the contract that he's about to sign. So maybe he does look at the bag. I wouldn't begrudge him if he chases the bag. In a place like Calgary, losing Gaudreau hurts so bad, not just for the lineup, but for their fans in general. So I could see Treliving chasing a big name to try and ease that pain a little bit.
Yeah, I could too. So here's a question. So I think in the East, especially the Atlantic, like a lot of those non-playoff teams got a lot better, like Detroit, Ottawa. Yeah. And I'll throw
Detroit basically signed everyone available.
Everyone. So Detroit, Ottawa, and Columbus. Of those three teams, I know Columbus are in a different division. Yeah. How many of those teams do you think make the playoffs next year?
I mean, I think one, maybe. Like when you look at the Atlantic, Florida, Toronto, Tampa are not going anywhere. Those three they've cemented themselves, right? Like they're playoff teams. In the Metro, Carolina and New York are playoff teams. So there's 3 spots up for grabs, I think, in the East next season. It's Pittsburgh's spot, but even them, like they have Jari, they have Crosby, they have Malcolm, they brought the band back together. They're probably getting it. So I should really be saying it's Washington's spot in the Metro and it's Boston's spot in the Atlantic for me. And the reason why it's hard to see one of these teams jumping up and taking that spot is Buffalo finished 32 points back of Boston last year. Detroit was 33. Ottawa was 34 points back. Okay, I do think it'll be tighter. I think all 3 of Buffalo, Detroit, Ottawa, and even Columbus, who finished with 81 points, they were 19 points back of Washington. I think there's the potential for like 3 of those 4 teams to jump up into the 90-point range. I think the Eastern Conference is going to like really condense and be a lot tighter than it was last season. But that is a big, big jump and a big ask for a team to jump up 30 some points in the standings to catch the Boston Bruins. Like that'll be difficult. I just don't know. They all improved, but did they improve enough?
Yeah. For me, when I look at the Atlantic, I think even though Buffalo, Detroit, Ottawa may not necessarily make a playoff spot, I don't think whoever's in 4th in that division last year was Boston is going to have, that much of a cushion. I think it'll be a little bit tighter, and that'll make it more interesting ultimately down the stretch, because when was the East playoff picture kind of locked up? It was so early. They were just kind of jockeying for positions. So I hope in the East that it's a little bit more interesting next year.
I'm really intrigued to see because the books will put out over-unders for point totals next season, right? I'm really intrigued to see how they judge Ottawa, Detroit, and Buffalo, because the team I'm most intrigued by is actually the Ottawa Senators, I think. Like Claude Giroux's a legit top 6 forward. There's rumors going around they might make a splash and get John Klingberg. Cam Talbot and Anton Forsberg is a really good duo between the pipes. Yep. And there's enough young talent there that you can realistically be like, hey, a few of those guys might even take a step forward next season. So I think Ottawa is maybe the most intriguing of that group for me. But then it's also hard to ignore the fact that like Buffalo did some great stuff down the stretch under Don Granato. So like all 3 of those teams, if the line is like 82.5 or 84.5 on all of them, I think I'd hammer the over on every single one and just know that I'm getting 2 out of the 3 right, probably.
Yeah, I think so too. I could absolutely see a 10-point improvement from all of those teams. Like Detroit, as I just said, signed basically everyone available. They stole a UFA that I would have loved to see in Edmonton and David Perron. Yeah. So they're actually picked up some valuable pieces there. They signed Husso at the draft. So I think Detroit's going to be better. Ottawa is going to be, I think they're going to be a really fun team to watch, if not even this year, but down the line, because they're doing some really interesting things down there. Pierre Dorion's kind of alive this offseason. This is the hot Pierre summer, if it's not the hot Holland summer here in Edmonton.
Yeah, the hot Pierre summer. Okay, back to the Oilers. So the case I wanted to make for them, and again, we're not going to try to sound like a homer here, but the case for the Edmonton Oilers to be the best Stanley Cup bet, they're all the way down at 15-1. Let's take a look at the teams who were in the Final Four last season. Okay, the Tampa Bay Lightning have lost Andre Palat, their clutch goal scorer, and Ryan McDonough, a top 4 D-man, and really haven't done anything to replace him yet, right? Either of them. Mm-hmm. They just can't. They're too cap-strapped to do it. Okay, so Tampa, maybe not as strong as they were last season. You got the New York Rangers, who they replaced Strome with Trocheck, which is fine. Like, that's a good move. That's an upgrade, I suppose. But aside from that, they're going to be banking on young players to get better. But that's the Eastern Conference. In the West, look at who the good teams were in the Western Conference and tell me how any of them got better. Calgary didn't get better yet. The Colorado Avalanche, significantly worse. The Colorado Avalanche downgraded from Kuemper to Georgiev. That's a downgrade. Georgiev's unproven. Kuemper was at least proven when he was in net. And I know they still have Francouz, but still, Colorado didn't get better between the pipes. Their blue line is still solid. But if you're going to remove Nazem Kadri from that lineup, and all you did was overpay Nichushkin and overpay Arturi Lehkonen, like, I don't know, Colorado isn't better. They're probably worse than they were last season on paper. So Colorado's
equal,
worse.
Maybe.
Pardon?
Equal at best, I think.
Yeah, equal at best. But again, if you're subtracting Kadri from that lineup and not replacing him,
that hurts.
It's hard for me to say you're better. Minnesota is not better. St. Louis is not better. So the top 3 teams in the Central, none of them improved. The top 3 teams or 4 teams in the Pacific, Edmonton improved because, I mean, they're going to have a full year of Jay Woodcroft, a full year of Evander Kane now. Brett Kulak's in the lineup. Like, there's reason to believe Edmonton will be better. LA got better, sure. Vegas didn't get better. They got worse. So you look at every team in their conference who could realistically give them a shot, give them like a real push. Edmonton's better than them. They got better while everyone else took a step back. And at 15-1, I think that's great value.
And I mean, I don't think Ken Holland's done either. You know, he missed out on Connor Brown. Unfortunately, that ruined Liam's meme that he was excited about.
Mm-hmm. Stay tuned for next year.
I think that means Holland, if he was chasing Connor Brown, that I don't think he's done. I think he's going to keep looking for improvements on the roster.
Yeah, when you look at the cap situation for the Oilers, so he has $1.3 million in cap space, but Oscar Klefbom and Mike Smith are going to go on LTIR, which means he'll have $7.7 million to spend still this summer. Now, granted, that very well could just be Puljujarvi, Yamamoto, and McLeod. But, you know, maybe he makes a move. Maybe he offloads Warren Fogle and then he can sit there and be like, hey, I actually have money to go get another free agent winger or something like that. But even just the fact that the Oilers have more or less brought back the exact same team with maybe a more stable option between the pipes and Jack Campbell. Like they're pretty much bringing back the same team that they did last year. And really no other team in the West who was a contender last season can say that.
I'd like to see them do some upgrades on defense to truly kind of cement my feeling that they're one of the best in the West. I think that if you look at a third pairing and you can kind of put them together however you want of Broberg-Bouchard, or not Broberg-Bouchard, Broberg-Barry as it is right now, I'm not really too pumped on that as a third pairing.
No. You know who's a name that I could, and I don't like this, but I could see Ken Holland going and giving like a 1-year deal to Danny DeKeyser, right? A guy he signed out of college, signed to a big ticket in Detroit, knows him. That feels like a Kenny Holland kind of move. I would also take a look at like Calvin DeHaan. Like there still are a few interesting veteran options on the free agent market that maybe they could use to patch that up. But you're right. Like they probably do need one more impact D-man, but that's why, again, like, this deal's been floated out there a bunch of times by fans, but like Barry for Soucy, man, you swap Barry for Soucy. Maybe Edmonton stabilizes that left side a little bit more. You sign a cheap righty. Like, I think you're a better decor with that kind of a deal. But again, I think Edmonton's the best bet to win the cup. Again, value wise, like obviously Colorado deserves to be the favorites. The Lightning and the Rangers, they're no joke. I think the Rangers at 15-1 as well. Like, if you were to just throw unit on Edmonton, unit on the New York Rangers, I think you're in a great spot to win some serious money next season.
I think something else too to add to that is the Central Division is still like 5 really good teams. You know, they have to play each other in the playoffs. Yeah. And then like in the Pacific, it's Edmonton and Vegas. Mm-hmm. And that's it. They literally, like, that's all it kind of takes to get there a little bit. And then the East is a bit of a crapshoot still. There's still like 10 good teams in there. I don't know where I would even put it in the East. Like, yeah, like the Rangers probably, like Florida. I don't know if I even believe in Florida anymore.
But the goaltending, you never know there, right? Just because Bobrovsky's so volatile and Spencer Knight's unproven, like you never know with their goaltending. You know, they lost Giroux, they lost Sherratt, like 2 guys they picked up at the deadline. Yeah, they're definitely not a lock to win that division, I'd say.
Who would be your long shot win? The one team you would probably say, okay, well, they got a shot at pretty high odds, I guess.
Let's pick one from each conference.
Okay.
Long shot win for me in the East. I mean, I don't even know how long of a shot it is. I like both the Rangers and the Hurricanes, but again, I don't think those are long shots. They're just teams that maybe haven't gotten over the hump yet, or they haven't gotten past the Tampa Bays yet, or an eventual winner yet. So I like both of those teams. I don't think necessarily that they've got too much of a chance to win it, but I expect the New York Islanders to be better this year than after the weird season they had last year. So they could be an outside chance maybe, because they always play that weird, boring playoff style of hockey anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I have one, a long shot in the Western Conference, who I think might be worth a little bit of a sprinkle. The Nashville Predators. They're coming in right now on PointsBet at 40-1 to win the Cup. Between the pipes, they are set. UC Saros is a guy who could win a Vezina in the next 2 or 3 years. Like, he's legit. He's 27. He's entering that prime age for a goalie. Saros is legit. They went and picked up Ryan McDonough for nothing. And I don't think that contract is going to age well. It's 4 more years. The last 2 years will suck. But for the next couple of seasons, you have a legit top 4 D-man who knows what it takes in the playoffs. So Yossi, McDonough, Ekholm is a very good 3 defensemen to have on your left side. Like, they will always have one of those guys on the ice. I think that's an incredible luxury. And then you go up front, and their forward group leaves you wanting a little bit more. Forsberg's back, though. You got Duchesne, Johansson, Granlund. It's not great, but they have $9.2 million in cap space. There's talks about them being sold. Maybe they're going to be, or they have been sold. They're going to be a little bit more aggressive. I wonder if maybe they go make one more big splash up front with that $9.2 million. And all of a sudden, if they make that splash, we start looking at the Predators a little bit differently, because 40-1 feels like crazy odds. They made the playoffs. They got swept. But remember, they got swept because they didn't have UC Saros, and they were playing a juggernaut Colorado team that's now not as good as they were last season, in my opinion. So Nashville 40-1, I think, is a good long shot.
I mean, Colorado won the to Nashville's credit, Colorado won the Stanley Cup with losing 4 games total?
Yeah,
something like that. It's just crazy.
Okay, my Eastern Conference team is going to be the Penguins.
Yeah,
they
haven't got past the first round in 6 years now. I like this pick, Liam. You're getting bold.
The band is back together. Mm-hmm. I think, I don't know. It just seems like I just have that weird feeling. Like, even last year, they almost beat the Rangers with Louis Domingue.
If Crosby didn't get hurt, or if Jari didn't get hurt, they probably win that series.
Yeah. And then who knows what happens from there. I feel like they could have beat Carolina 2-1 actually that strong either. Then you're looking at them in the Eastern Conference Finals. A lot of ifs, but I don't think it's that out of the question to say that. So I'll go with the Penguins at, what are they? 20-1, I think it was.
Yeah.
Their blue line is maybe a little questionable, but they got Jan Ruda. He was like that big defenseman guy they got.
Yeah. And
then, just bringing the boys back. That's what I'm going to go with. Sid the Kid, Gino, and Mr. Letang.
I don't hate it.
I don't hate it either. They've done it before. And like Tyler said, if Jari was playing in the playoffs, if Sid didn't get hurt, they probably get through New York because they were up 3-1 that series, right? So I can buy it, Liam. I can buy it.
And they had a lead in all 3 of those games, right? After they're the only team to ever lose a 3-1 series lead after having a lead in games 5, 6, 7. So good. Are there any
playoff teams from last year in the NHL that you just see going the other way?
Boston.
Dallas
is a good one. Yeah, like if they lose Klingberg and don't replace him. I mean, Ottinger's legit, but the rest of that team leaves me questioning them. For Boston, like, Bergeron hasn't made a decision, but like, even if Bergeron and Krejci come back, they're an aging core. No Brad Marchand, no Charlie McAvoy till like Christmas time. That's a big hole, and
that hurts.
And they're in a hard division. Like, all of a sudden, you're not sitting there. Last year, it was clear, like we talked about: Florida, Toronto, Tampa, Boston, legit. Buffalo, Detroit, Ottawa, Montreal, garbage. Okay, Montreal will be a little bit better if Carey Price is healthy. You got the hype of Slafkovsky, all that stuff. They'll be a little bit better. They're not going to be 55 points bad. Ottawa's better, Detroit's better, Buffalo's better. All of a sudden, there's not as many easy nights for a team like the Boston Bruins in the regular season. I think they're in trouble of missing the playoffs. And when the odds come out for miss the playoffs, I plan on hammering the Boston Bruins to miss.
I forgot about McAvoy. Don't they have 2 guys who are out till like Christmas?
It was Marchand, the other one.
Oh, was it Marchand? Oh,
yeah,
wasn't
that's
it?
A big hole.
There wasn't a 3. They released on one day like 3 guys are out for months.
I think the other one was Matt Grzelcyk, but he's going to be back by the start of the season.
Yeah, it was him. Yeah, that's a good one. So Dallas, I had Dallas. I guess Calgary is the other safer option.
Easy one. Yeah,
but I guess like Daryl Sutter's the coach. Like you don't really. Maybe there's still a chance they could get in. Like the division's weak. Like there's
still
a
have
lot
Markstrom.
Of question marks. Still have Markstrom.
I don't think that the Flames are going to be an easy night by any chance. But they just lost their game breaker. A guy who finished with 115 points. And what does that mean for Matthew Tkachuk too? The Flames could have just a really detrimental offseason here, depending on what happens with Tkachuk. Yeah. So I see them as I could absolutely see them getting in, but I don't think that they're anywhere close to the 111 point team they were last year.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I think so. The rumor with Tkachuk is St. Louis, right?
It's always going to be there just because of the family connection. I don't think there's actually been like any firm connections made. I bet you Calgary resigns him.
Yeah, I think so too. But hypothetically, because why not? If they traded him to they would have to trade into St. Louis, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Maybe that's what kind of saves them a little bit, is being like, okay, well, we'll take Jordan Kyrou and then some other middle six guy. And then that's kind of what saves them a little bit. Like that'll probably help.
I wonder, my thought with Calgary and Tkachuk is because he could sign his QO and be gone as a UFA next year. And that's the worst case scenario, unless you trade him in season, obviously, to recoup some of those assets. You can't lose them for free like they did with Gaudreau. But I wonder if they're going to be more inclined to try and max extend him at a premium rate to keep him around rather than walking down that road. So as an example, like say he's a $8 million player. Would they push him to 10 just to make him happy and keep him there? I wonder if that's the road that the Flames are going down with him.
Yeah, maybe. And who knows, maybe with Matt Tkachuk, he'll take this. And remember, the captaincy's up for grabs in Calgary, right? Maybe they sit there and they go, hey, do you want this to like be your team? Like 8-year deal. We're going to give you the captaincy. You're going to be the face of a franchise. Whereas, other places you go, you might not be that guy. So I wonder if maybe that's a little intriguing for Tkachuk. It's always tough to judge too with guys who have parents who played in the league, right? Like his dad being in the league, he's clearly well off financially. Like, is he going to be a guy who's like, no, I need to make that extra $500K a year? Or would he be sort of what you'd call legacy aware, where he's like, no, I want to have a legacy somewhere. I don't want to be a guy who bounces around to team to team to team to team. I want to sit in one spot, kind of like Keith did, right? He's a legend in St. Louis. Does Matt sit there and go, no, I want to make Calgary my home. I want to be the face of a franchise like my dad was.
Like his brother is.
And that's the thing. Brady did the same thing. A lot of people were like, oh, Brady won't sign in Ottawa. Are you kidding me? And then all of a sudden it was 8-year deal with the captaincy.
Yeah, maybe we overthink that a lot as hockey fans. Just players aren't moving as much as we say that Johnny Gaudreau obviously leaves. Yeah. But like, it's not like the NBA where guys leave.
At the NBA, they leave every time. Yeah.
Yeah, someone brought him someone buttered his toast wrong and now he wants to leave. Like,
yeah, you got to butter with love.
Or jam.
Oh yeah, you got PBJ and butter with love always, right to the edges.
And no crust.
Yeah. Oh, if you're cutting off the crust, come on.
All right, we're coming up on like the 40-minute mark here, so I want to wrap this up by building our sandwich. But first, I want to ask you guys a question, an MLB trivia question. All right.
Uh-oh.
If you were to wager $100 on every MLB team to win straight up this season, who do you think would be the most profitable in the league?
San Diego.
The Yankees? They were on an absolute heater to start the year.
If you were to bet $100 on the New York Yankees every game, you would be up $978, but they are not even close to the most profitable team, which is the Baltimore Orioles. If you were to wager $100 on every Baltimore Orioles game, you would be up $1,600 on the year. They're currently riding a 10-game heater, boys. 10-game heater for the O's. And they're looking to make it 11 tonight, going up against the Tampa Bay Rays, who've been struggling a little bit. And the Rays
6
are going
4 their last 10.
Yeah, they're not a dominant Rays team, and they're going with Luis Patino tonight, who is a electric young arm who struggled a little bit. He was on a rehab assignment. He's been banged up this year. He's only pitched 2/3 of an inning this season as well. His career ERA is 4.53. Like, I think the Orioles are in a pretty good spot as plus 105 underdogs. They are my leg for the BLT sandwich.
Okay. So if you're going there, go ahead, Liam.
No, you go.
I'm going to do. I'm just looking around here. I'm going to bet on the Jays, and I'm going to try and keep it. You know what? I'm going to go run line on the Jays. I'm going to keep it a little bit more conservative. I don't think they're going to lose again to Casey.
You going -1.5?
Yep.
All right, Liam.
I will go with the Miami Marlins to beat the Philadelphia Phillies.
Straight up.
With Sandy on the mound. That's his name, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Sandy Alcantara, who's just an absolute beast.
1.73 ERA. Yeah, that'll work. That'll pay the bills.
He's pitched in his last 3 games. He's pitched 24 innings and only allowed 2 runs. Sandy Alcantara is a fucking machine. So we got Orioles money line, Marlins money line, Jays run line, plus 442, which means $10 would turn into $52. So nice little spot here for our BLT Bets sandwich of the week.
Delicious.
I actually really like this. This is a great spot. I think the Marlins, obviously, with Alcantara, legit. The other bet I would probably recommend to people tonight, if you're looking for something obviously a little bit safer, is Alek Manoah over 5.5 Ks. Kevin Gausman picked up 6 yesterday. Manoah is an absolute machine. He racks up the Ks almost every time he gets the ball. I think he's in a good spot to go over 5.5 tonight.
I hope he pitches when we're in Toronto, Tyler, so we can be the Manoah boys, maybe.
Yeah, we should be able to. So, like, they're obviously going to change up their rotation a little bit coming out of the All-Star break, but we should be able to do the math on that when they get out of the All-Star break, like line up where the rotation's going to go. But just again, Manoah has hit this in 2 of his last 3, and the only time he missed it was when he picked up 5 against Oakland when he got kind of lit up. So Manoah over 5.5 tonight is the bonus bet. That's a great spot.
I like it.
I bet on that game.
Yeah, I'm going to go heavy. I'll be in the Twitter community. I'll post some other juicy same game parlays I got for the Jays, and let's see if they can snap out of this. All right, boys, this was a pleasure. We will have another one coming up. Until then, happy betting, and we'll chat with you next week.